And this is how we're going to do it, folks. We'll work in as much time as we can. We are in that time of year when we're starting budget amendments, and that's always more exciting than what we'll be doing. So we'll go for this first bill, and we'll have the chairman join us of House Minerals. Senator Representative Burkhart, thank you. House Bill 61 engrossed, source material associated with mining agreement. Chairman Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, very much. Thank you for hearing me. And I know that the Department of Environmental Quality will also speak to this. And if you look, you can see a very, very amended bill. And it's a good thing. We look at these of heavily amended bills of saying, oh, gee, they mess up. This is actually a good thing. So, but let me fill you in on the bill first. What this bill does is expands, amends our agreement state status with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Currently, we are an agreement state for the permitting of uranium and thorium mines. And in the way the NRC does things, though, if we generate uranium or thorium from some other operation as a byproduct, we are not an agreement state, and a company would have to go to the NRC directly for a license to possess byproduct uranium and thorium. I can't explain why the NRC is like that. They've been like that for years. So a few years back, we became an agreement state status for thorium and uranium mining, which lets our Department of Environmental Quality license those operations in Wyoming, which has been a tremendous benefit to the industry. That agreement status was paid for by the industry. They continue to pay for it in their licensing applications, and has been a boom for the industry where the state and the industry can work together. And what the companies get from that for their fees is they actually get a license in about half the time and half the money than they would get if they had to go through the NRC directly. So we are a lot more efficient being an agreement state. What this bill does is modifies that agreement state status to then include byproduct material from other mining operations. For example, the rare earth mine going in up in the northeast corner of the state will generate some radioactive material as a byproduct to that operation. The issue is they will have just over the limit of material, and they have to have a license to possess that byproduct material. Now, for the demonstration project that's currently in place, they've applied for a NRC license directly. But there will be future applications. There are, I think, 2 more companies looking at building rare earth mines in the state. So we decided as a state we should be able to license those byproduct materials. And that this bill modifies our current agreement state status to include that byproduct material, and the benefits to the industry will be the same as they've been for the mining industry. Half the time, half the money. And that's the bill in a nutshell. And the department can speak to that. Now, I said the bill it was a good thing, it was heavily amended. The bill came out of Minerals Committee, out of our October meeting, if I remember correctly. We passed it out, assuming that the NRC would take almost a year, as they did in the past, to approve our application for agreement state status. We also kind of assumed they would want us to get just a separate agreement state status, and the department can correct me where I'm wrong on this. They would want a separate agreement to do that for the byproduct material. The department then, after that meeting from the committee, went to the NRC and said, okay, we have this, we've passed the bill. The NRC kind of jumped the gun on us and said, okay, we like it, go forward. Here's some modifications we want, which are in the engrossed copy of the bill. And that, so they almost jumped the gun on us by a year in our estimation. So most of the changes in here are our wording changes. There's nothing substantial. The biggest thing probably is we're only going to modify our current agreement state status and add this other licensing opportunity in. And is expanded, we had originally said rare earths specifically, and they've said no, go out and expand it, keep it to minerals, but there may be other minerals. Vanadium, for example. You usually find vanadium with uranium, so if someone opens a vanadium mine where they have uranium as a byproduct, that can be licensed in state quickly, easily, and I think all of us enjoy being able to go to a state agency rather than having to go to a federal agency. So, Mr. Chairman, that's it. I'll let the department go through the bill in detail, but that's kind of it in a nutshell. It was a interim topic for the committee. I think this has great potential for Wyoming in the future. And with that, I'd stand for questions.
Thank you. Questions, committee? If you'd stay there, Mr. Co-Chair, and who would like to join him? The state. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Co-Chair. Yeah, I guess so. But we appreciate you, Mr. Co-Chair, but let's have her up there. She seems to be an expert. Yeah, it came in force today, so. All right.
I think she was trying to divide.
Director, let's go with you identifying first and then just go down the order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Todd Parfit, the Director of the Department of Environmental Quality, and with me is Kyle Wentland, sorry. I'm not sure who's here today. Kyle Wentland, he's the Land Quality Division Administrator, and Brandy O'Brien, who is the manager of our uranium recovery program. And they're basically the brains behind the outfit here. So just real quickly, Representative Burkhart gave a good overview of the bill. Just wanted to touch on a few things here. It was in 2018 that we became an agreement state with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission for the uranium and thorium mining and milling. That program is managed through the Land Quality Division, specifically through the Uranium Recovery Program, and it's a 100% fee-based program, and so it's paid for by the industry. And as Representative Burkhart mentioned, is that we are able to implement the program, the licensing program, for about half the cost than it was under the NRC, and we can process license applications much quicker. So last year, we were provided funding and asked to conduct another feasibility study to expand the agreement state status to include a narrow range of these source materials associated with the mining and milling. We did the feasibility study. We discussed that with the Minerals Committee, and the outcome of that discussion was House Bill 61. And then we have, just on the bill itself, we did identify a few areas in the engrossed version that we are recommending you should have a copy of that. And then Kyle's going to walk through the bill itself and then explain why we want to make those or recommending those amendments to the bill. So,
okay, Kyle.
Mr. Chairman and committee, Mr. Chairman and committee, thank you, Director. Just one other clarifying point here for the committee and a little history. When the NRC typically grants an agreement state status, it's usually for a category, a full category of material. Those basic categories are special nuclear material, byproduct material, source material, and radium. The current program is on the 11E2, more on the byproduct material. Then the program that is proposed for you with this bill is in more purely on the source material. But more importantly, we're looking at taking a very limited sliver of that category. And Wyoming was very successful with that with the uranium program stand-up. But in taking that limited sliver, the definition of that material becomes very important, and we spent a great deal of time on this with the NRC in our discussions with them, because we wanted that sliver to be as broad as we could possibly make it, and more importantly, such that it could include potential things that might come out of the School of Energy Resources core CM work. It could encompass things like rare earths from coal ash, and it could also include the DISA technology that is coming online. So we spent a lot of time with the NRC to make it that narrow sliver, but that narrow sliver very broad, if that makes sense to the committee. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll do a pretty quick walkthrough of the bill here.
Let's do that.
If we go to page 2, line 20, and this will run through page 3, line 6. This is the language that allows the governor to write the letter of engagement and engage the NRC to amend our program and enter into the process of adding this to the agreement state. In page 3 and the remainder of line 6 through line 9, and this is a key point, this is where we get to the definition of the term of mineral resources, and that means any host rock or material or waste associated with mining or milling that contains a recoverable mineral. Again, we spent a great deal of time on this with NRC and their general counsel and our own in-house counsel to get this definition down. So, and then if we go to page 3, line 19 through 23, there's two components to this. This is where there's a numeric convention, and it is a little bit cumbersome, but it's important. The item 1 is addressing the current program. Item 2 is addressing what would be the new source material program. And it makes it very clear what applies to each part of this. And this was, again, a recommendation from NRC to add that clarity to the bill. And then it also then adds the definition of the source material recovered from any mineral resources processed primarily for the purpose, as Representative Burkhart so eloquently said, other than obtaining the source material content. That is key language to the NRC. Mr. Chairman, we then move to page 4, line 4 through 5. This is a cross-reference to the appropriate subsection in the bill that was corrected. We move to page 4, lines 13 through 18. Again, this is the clarifying language and numeric convention that I just discussed. Then we go to page 4, line 22 through page 5, line 7. And again, this is just a repeat of that clarifying language. And then we get to line 9 on page 5. And this is where we add a source material to this portion of the bill where it is exempting laboratories. We have discussed this with the industry and the labs currently have these licenses in place, and they don't want to have to go back through that process. They just want to maintain their licenses with the NRC as a preference by the labs within the state. So this adds that new language to that exemption for the labs. Mr. Chairman, then from page 5 through page 8, we really just, it comes back to a repeat of the clarifying language and the numeric ordering for clarity within the bill. And then that gets us to section 2 on page 9, lines 16 through 19. And this section of the bill provides for DEQ to adopt a fee structure for industry. And then it also adds language for the EQC upon recommendation of the DEQ director to develop and promulgate rules and regulations for source material. We then move to section 3, which would be page 9, lines 21. And this goes 21 through page 10, line 3. This is where it provides for the addition of 2 FTE for the stand-up and continued operation of the program. And Mr. Chairman, this is where we start one of our recommended amendments. And what I'm going to preface this with is we had some discussion on the House side of this where the dates weren't lining up, and we wanted to make sure we weren't double dipping between the funds for the stand-up and then the continued operation of the program. And you also have to understand with the current program, we had licensees to pay a fee. In this case, there is no licensee yet, so there may need to be a general fund appropriation for the operational portion of the program once it is stood up. So you have the 1.84 million that is the cost of the stand-up, and then you have an ongoing cost to continue to run the program in the event we do not have a licensee. So the first recommended amendment then is in page 10, line 2, and we're recommending changing those dates to 2027 and 2028 from 2026 and 27. Then on, sorry, I gotta catch up with my sheet here. I can't grab the page. Page 10, line 9. We again changed the date from 2027 to 2026. Page 10, line 19, we changed from 2027 to 2026. And then on page 10, line 22, we would strike for the immediate succeeding fiscal biennium, and we would add beginning biennial fiscal year 2027 with general fund appropriations.
Give me that last one again, please.
It would be page 10, line 22, and the strike was for the immediate succeeding fiscal biennium. The add would be beginning biennial fiscal year 2027 with general fund appropriation.
And Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
And Mr. Chairman, you'll find that on the handout that we provided to you.
Okay, thank you. All right, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, then that takes us to section 5, and that's more of the effective date and enabling language of the bill, and that would be the summary for you.
Thank you. Anything else?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Questions? Questions? All right. Do you have something to contribute here?
I'm just here if there are technical questions.
Oh, tech support. Okay. Very good. Committee, you want to go over any questions in general, or we have all three of them here? All right. A lot of work went into it in the House, so good. Director, do you have any closing thoughts before we check for further testimony?
No, Mr. Chairman, other than, this has been worked pretty well, I think, through the interim with the Minerals Committee. And this would be something that what we heard testimony with the Minerals Committee was that the industry that was interested, rather, in this program committed that they would pay the fee if they were the only licensee to run the program.
Okay. Thank you. All right, let's check and see if there's anybody else in the room who'd like to testify on this bill. House Bill 61, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I do have one more question, and it's partly just because I haven't worked through the fiscal year math. But on the proposal, so we're talking page 10, but even back on page 9, it's the two new positions, and the desire, it is the intent of the legislature, the Department of Environmental Quality, include these full-time positions in its 27-28 standard budget request. Is that the right timeline for a standard budget as opposed to a supplemental? And I'm Director.
So, Mr. Chairman, Senator Rothfuss, yeah, we wrestled with the timing of this as well because of the fiscal year. As we understand it, the 1.84 million to stand up the program and to begin operation of the program would expire June 30, 2026. And then the appropriation for the positions as part of the standard budget would begin July 1 of 2026, which is state fiscal year 2027.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, with the change, and I get that alignment, that makes sense, but I'm actually more getting at which year is a standard, is the budget and which year is the supplement. Because if 27, 28 were the second year of a biennial budget, you would want to include it in the standard budget with an initiation date of the second year, if it's to be included in the standard budget request, potentially. And that, I'm probably getting into the weeds. Let me just talk to Don Richards about it later. How's that?
You want to respond to that? Want to go down in the weeds?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Rothfuss, I think, and this is what we struggled with as well, is we want to make sure that we have coverage throughout the transition after we've stood up the program, and we didn't want to. We felt that we could use the 1.84 million up to June 30. We believe that 27-28 is the full biennium, so it's not the supplemental.
Okay. I'll
That's
just
our
double check. I certainly understand your intent.
All right.
And let me just double check the language
Let's check and
afterwards.
see if
Thank
we
you.
got anybody else in the room. And anybody else like to testify to this? House Bill 61, Governor's Office. And then we have someone on the screen. Go ahead. All yours.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Jennifer Thompson, and I'm the Major Projects Manager for the Governor. When the Governor prepared his State of the State and delivered that to the legislature, he acknowledged his support for this bill and asked me to reiterate that for you all today. We see this as a great opportunity for the state to take on the permitting and regulatory actions of an industry that we want to see move forward in the state of Wyoming. So the critical and rare earth, the rare earth and critical minerals industry is something that is an opportunity we want to take advantage of. And we see allowing the state to manage permitting of that and the regulatory actions is beneficial.
Thank you. Committee, questions from Ms. Thompson? So thank you for coming. In the room. Mr. Detai, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Travis Detai. I'm the Executive Director of the Wyoming Mining Association. It's a pleasure to be before your committee for the first time, Mr. Chairman.
Glad to have you.
And I'm sure we'll be here a lot in the future. So full support of the bill. And just a little bit, this kind of dovetails a lot with what the state has been doing and the support for standing up a new industry that we've been working on here for the past few years. And just a couple of quick points. We have two companies right now currently developing and exploring for deposits in Wyoming. The Bear Lodge project up in the Northeast, which is one of the the richest deposits in North America. And we also have the Halleck project down in the southeast corner of the state. So we've got these folks that are exploring, that want to be here. This is going to help them get going. A lot of work is already being done, and it's a commitment shown by both the governor and the legislature and the University of Wyoming. The State Geological Survey and the School of Energy Resources have both received millions of dollars in federal funding to locate critical mineral resources in Wyoming. And in the next couple of years, almost $4 million in airborne geophysical surveys will be flown over central and southern Wyoming to identify these mineral trends. And these types of surveys are critical to attract the interest of private industry. And these were funded by the United States Geological Survey through an ARPA grant and through the state of Wyoming and the State Geological Survey. And additionally, the legislature has shown its commitment by appropriating $130,000 toward critical mineral research, and $50,000 of this went towards these geophysical surveys. And again, this shows the commitment that the state of Wyoming has, and the support we have received from the body and from the governor's office to stand up this new industry is very strong, and we appreciate it. The School of Energy Resources is doing great work. They're looking at rare earths from coal, and this bill will make these efforts, help these efforts proceed as well. And, the thing that I like to hit is we've got the great opportunity going forward on this. When Delegate Joseph Carey was lobbying for Wyoming statehood back in the 19th century, one of his key arguments was our unsurpassed mineral resources. We've got a lot of stuff in the ground, and we need to be developing it. We need to get it out of the ground. We're reliant on our resources. And, right now we're in competition with other states. A couple of our states to the west are ahead of us, but others are still behind us. So the train is leaving and Wyoming needs to be on it. We need to be driving it. And we've had success with this model, with the Agreement State program, with our uranium recovery program. As Chairman Burkhart pointed out, it has cut the outlay, the financial outlay from companies in half. It cuts the time in half. And I can tell you from the operator's standpoint, it is much easier dealing with a person on the ground in Wyoming to manage your project than it is getting a phone call returned from Washington, D.C., if you even get a call returned. So the Agreement State program, and I will say Ms. O'Brien and Administrator Wentland are excellent to work with, and it has been an unqualified success. And we look forward to moving this forward with our nascent rare earth industry.
Questions for Mr. Detai?
And one other thing, Mr. Chairman, I just want to say this body last year passed the assigned trust program. That is going to be critical, and it's going to be very appealing for some new companies to come in so that they can bond with the state and not have to go out on the surety market. You guys have put together a real good package, a real attractive package, I think, for companies to come in and start developing this resource. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I would stand for questions, but we fully support the bill.
Thank you. Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else in the room on this bill? Let's go to the video then.
Can you hear me okay?
Go ahead, sir. Identify yourself and away you go.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I'm Brent Berg, President and CEO of Rare Element Resources. Our company has a long history of developing and delineating world-class barrelage mineral deposit near Sundance, Wyoming. We've also been progressing a rare earth processing and separation demonstration plant in Upton and are planning to utilize that information from the demonstration plant in furthering the barrelage project and a commercial plant in the future. We're currently working diligently with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to obtain a license to possess small amounts of naturally occurring radioactive material, which is incidental to the rare earth material. Working with the NRC can be a very belabored process. And while the demonstration project NRC license is not likely to be impacted by the potential agreement state amendment, it's a full-scale rare earth commercial plant, which would potentially become a licensee under the Wyoming agreement state status if this amendment is progressed. We believe this legislative amendment to Wyoming's agreement state statute will result in cost-effective and effective jurisdiction over source material derived from rare earth recovery and conventional mining. Wyoming uranium operators have experienced this, and we anticipate that the rare earth operators will experience the same benefits. So I'd just like to thank you for the opportunity to address the committee on this important bill today.
Any questions for Mr. Burke? Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else in the room? Let's do this. Well, we got enough time to move this through. Let's just take it and go page 1, page 2, and see where we're at with, because there are some amendments. Senator Ellis, would you pick those up? Page 1, page 2.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay.
Just to flag this, I don't know that it needs an amendment, but on page 2, line 12, there's a typo.
Okay.
it says Scontact. I looked at the draft, or it's in our green books properly. It's in House Bill 61 as it was introduced correctly. Somehow in the engrossed copy, we have Scontact instead
With
of
this
contact.
Technical correction then,
Yep.
folks.
So
Okay.
just to flag that, that way we don't have problems
Okay.
down the road.
Page 2.
Scontact.
Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Page 11, you have those amendments? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I would move on page 10, line 2, that we change 2026 to 2026-27 to 27-28.
Let's do them all at one time.
And then on line 9, 2027 to 26. And then on line 19, 2027 to 2026. And then on line 22, strike that sentence or that line entirely and insert beginning biennial fiscal year 2027 with general fund appropriation.
Thank you. Everybody understand what we're doing? It's motion then, second? Seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Anything else on the bill? All right. Roll call, please.
Senator Cooper,
Aye.
Senator Ellis,
Aye.
Senator Jones. Aye. Senator Brussels,
Aye.
Chairman Dockstader.
Aye.
Chairman Dockstader, there are 5 ayes.
Thank you. Bill passes.